First Contact's deception. The holographic display aboard the Meridian flagship, Eternal Dawn, painted Earth in deceptively peaceful hues of blue and green. Grand Admiral Vexthor stood before it, his crystalline form refracting the light into prismatic patterns across the bridge. Their surveillance had been thorough. 3 years of careful observation from beyond the solar system's edge. Everything pointed to a civilization barely reaching for the stars. Status report, Vexthor commanded, his voice resonating through the crystalline architecture of the bridge. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Lyra, materialized beside him. Like all Meridians, her form was composed of living crystal, though hers bore the deep purple hues of the warrior caste. The humans continue their primitive activities, Admiral. Their orbital installations remain minimal, primarily communication satellites and a single modest space station. Their surface-to-orbit capabilities are limited to chemical propulsion. And their quantum signatures? Negligible. They haven't even discovered basic consciousness amplification. Their minds remain. She paused, searching for the right word, isolated. Vexthor's form pulsed with satisfaction. The Meridian Empire had encountered countless species over their 10,000 years of expansion, but few had been as perfectly positioned as humanity. A resource-rich world, ideally situated for their next expansion phase, defended by a species that hadn't even unified their consciousness into a basic collective. Begin the approach sequence, he ordered. Standard conquest formation. The Meridian battle fleet emerged from quantum space in perfect geometric alignment, 1,000 ships arranged in a tetrahedral pattern that would have been impossible with conventional propulsion. Each vessel was a masterpiece of crystalline engineering, capturing and refracting starlight in ways that made them appear to be living fragments of space itself. Send the standard greeting package, Vexthor commanded. Let them witness the inevitability of their situation. Deep within the NO80 complex beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the alien fleet's arrival on displays that shouldn't have existed according to any public record. She stood in the heart of Horizon Chamber, humanity's most closely guarded secret, surrounded by technology that would reshape the understanding of consciousness itself if it ever became known. They're exactly where we predicted, she noted to General Marcus Chen, who stood beside her. The quantum wake analysis was perfect. The general nodded, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays showing the Meridian fleet's position. And their message. Elena gestured, and a crystalline structure materialized in the air between them. The alien communication translated into physical form by their quantum interfaces, standard conquest protocol. They're offering us the chance to surrender and be peacefully absorbed into their empire. They've given us 12 hours to respond. 12 hours to contemplate our primitive helplessness. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. How generous of them. Elena's hand moved through a series of practiced gestures, interfacing with systems that read intention more than motion. Around them, the Horizon Chamber hummed with power that had nothing to do with electricity or conventional energy. This was the power of unified human consciousness, multiplied and focused through quantum mechanics that humanity had discovered through a very different path than their crystalline visitors. All defense grid nodes are green, she reported. The consciousness collective is stable and responsive. 300 million volunteers, all connected and ready to contribute their mental energy to the grid. This was humanity's true power, not ships or weapons or energy shields, but the unified mental energy of willing participants, all contributing a fraction of their consciousness to a network that could reshape reality itself. They had discovered it by accident, through meditation and neuroscience, rather than physics and engineering. By the time they understood what they had created, they also understood the wisdom of keeping it hidden. Begin the response sequence, Marcus ordered. Standard Protocol 7. Elena nodded, her fingers dancing through the quantum interface. Across the planet, in homes and offices and public spaces, 300 million humans felt a gentle touch on their minds. the signal that their mental energy was being drawn into the grid. None of them knew the full extent of what they were contributing to, but all had volunteered to be part of Earth's defense network. In space, the Meridian fleet waited in perfect formation, their crystalline ships glittering against the void. Admiral Vexthor watched the countdown with growing anticipation. In his 10,000 years of service to the Empire, he had overseen hundreds of planetary acquisitions. This one promised to be among the smoothest. The human response, when it came, was puzzling in its simplicity. A single text transmission, broadcast in perfect Meridian language. "We decline. Please depart immediately." Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with amusement. No pleading, no negotiations. Interesting. He turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the first phase. Target their primitive satellites. Let them experience a taste of isolation." The order went out, and 100 Meridian ships powered up their quantum weaponry, preparing to eliminate Earth's communication network with surgical precision. But at that exact moment, something happened that had never occurred in the history of the Meridian Empire. They lost contact with their quantum consciousness network. For a species that existed as living crystal, unified by a constant quantum connection, the sensation was more than shocking. It was traumatic. Across the fleet, Meridian crews suddenly found themselves truly isolated for the first time in their lives. "Impossible," Vexthor whispered, his crystalline form clouding with confusion. "Status report." But before anyone could respond, space itself seemed to ripple around their fleet. It wasn't violent or explosive. Instead, it was as if reality had simply decided to politely disagree with the Meridian's presence. Ships began to shift, not through any force or weapon, but through the gentle but irresistible manipulation of space-time itself. As the fleet watched in helpless confusion, their perfectly geometric formation began to fold in on itself, like an origami sculpture being unmade. Ships merged with space, not destroyed but simply relocated elsewhere, with such precision that not a single crystal was damaged in the process. In the horizon chamber, Elena monitored the quantum fields with satisfaction. "Relocation complete," she reported. "All Meridian ships have been transferred to the designated coordinates in the Orc cloud. Their quantum navigation systems will need at least 72 hours to re-establish their bearings." Marcus nodded. "Send the final message." In the confused bridge of the eternal dawn, now floating amid the distant ice bodies of the Orc cloud, Admiral Vexthor received humanity's final communication. "Your technology is impressive, but you have much to learn about the true nature of consciousness. When you are ready for dialogue rather than conquest, we will welcome you as equals. Until then, know that we require neither ships nor weapons to defend our home." This is our final communication. As his crew struggled to re-establish their quantum networks, Vexthor stared at the message for a long time, his crystalline form shifting through patterns that reflected emotions no human could fully comprehend. In all his millennia of service, he had never encountered a species that had mastered consciousness itself before reaching for the stars. Perhaps, he realized, it was time for the Meridian Empire to reevaluate its understanding of primitive. The silent defense. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in her private meditation chamber within the Horizon complex, her eyes closed as streams of data flowed through her consciousness. The quantum interface headset she wore was little more than a formality, a physical anchor for a connection that transcended conventional technology. Around her, the air sparkled with quantum particles that danced in response to her thoughts. Neural collective status. General Chen's voice came through the quantum field, more of a thought than a sound. Elena's consciousness expanded, touching the vast network of minds that formed Earth's defense grid. 312 million active participants, she responded. Consciousness synchronization at 97%. The collective is stable and responsive. She remembered the day, 15 years ago, when everything changed. She had been a neuroscience researcher then, studying meditation practices and their effects on brain activity. The discovery was almost missed, an anomaly, in the quantum field measurements during a mass meditation experiment. But that tiny fluctuation had led humanity down a path that rewrote the rules of physics and consciousness itself. The memory rippled through the collective, shared unconsciously with millions of other minds. Each contributor to the defense grid experienced only the faintest echo of others' thoughts, a necessary limitation to maintain individual privacy. But in moments of strong emotion or memory, the barriers thinned ever so slightly. The Meridians are attempting to re-establish their quantum network, reported Captain James Wong from his station in quantum monitoring. His consciousness brushed against Alina's in the collective, sharing raw data faster than words could convey. Their technology is interesting. They've mechanized something that should be organic. Alina understood. The Meridians had built their empire on quantum technology, creating artificial networks to link their crystalline minds. But they had never discovered what humanity had found. That consciousness itself could directly manipulate quantum fields, no technology required. Their greatest strength was actually their fundamental limitation. Defense grid status. General Chen's query carried undertones of concern. The recent relocation of the Meridian fleet had consumed significant mental energy from the collective. Alina's mind touched each layer of Earth's defenses. There were no satellites, no ships, no conventional weapons. Instead, 300 million human minds worked in concert, their combined consciousness creating quantum fields that could reshape reality itself. The power was precisely controlled. They had learned early on that the raw energy of human thought had to be carefully channeled to prevent unintended consequences. Grid is stable, she reported. Quantum field integrity at 94% and rising. The collective is already compensating for the energy expenditure from the relocation effort. Through the quantum interface, she could sense the Meridian fleet regrouping in the Orc cloud. Their confusion was palpable even at this distance, a civilization built on artificial quantum networks suddenly confronting something that defied their understanding of reality. "They're scanning us," Captain Wong reported. "Trying to locate the source of our quantum manipulations. Their sensors are searching for technology that doesn't exist." Alina allowed herself a small smile. The Meridians' assumptions about technological progression had become their blind spot. They couldn't conceive of a species achieving quantum manipulation without first developing the kind of technology they themselves used. A new presence entered the quantum field. Dr. Sarah Chen, the general's daughter and head of the Consciousness Research Division. Her mind touched Alina's with familiar warmth. "The collective is picking up interesting patterns from the Meridian fleet," she reported. "Their quantum technology isn't just a communication network. It's fundamental to their biology. The isolation is causing them significant distress." Alina frowned, her concern rippling through the collective. "Are we causing them harm?" "No," Sarah assured her, "but we're challenging their most basic assumptions about existence. Their entire civilization is built on the idea that consciousness requires technological amplification. Meeting a species that can naturally do what they need machines for, it's shattering their worldview." General Chen's consciousness carried a note of strategic consideration. "Can we use this? Not to harm them, but to communicate." Alina's mind raced through the possibilities, her thoughts merging with the collective intelligence of 300 million connected minds. The answer emerged not from any single consciousness, but from the unified wisdom of humanity's shared knowledge. "We could show them," she said slowly. "Not tell them, but let them experience it directly. A controlled demonstration of natural quantum consciousness." The risk calculations flowed through the collective instantly, millions of minds processing possibilities faster than any computer. The consensus emerged clear and strong. This was an opportunity not just for defense, but for understanding. Alina began calibrating the quantum fields, preparing for a type of first contact that no protocol had ever anticipated. The Meridians had come expecting to find primitive humans reaching for the stars. Instead, they would discover a species that had reached inward and found something far more powerful. Through the quantum interface, she sensed the Meridian fleet's continuing efforts to reorient themselves. Their artificial quantum network was gradually coming back online, but its rigid technological nature stood in stark contrast to the fluid organic connection of human consciousness. Preparing for controlled quantum interface, she announced, requesting voluntary consciousness contribution for focused demonstration. Across the planet, millions of minds responded, offering their mental energy to the collective. Each contributor knew only that they were helping to defend Earth. The details of the quantum defense program remained humanity's most closely guarded secret, but their trust and willingness to help had become humanity's greatest strength. As Alina coordinated the massive flow of consciousness energy, she reflected on how far humanity had come. They had skipped the traditional path of technological advancement, bypassing conventional space travel and weapons development. Instead, they had discovered something far more fundamental: the direct connection between mind and reality itself. The Meridians were about to learn that true power didn't come from technology, no matter how advanced. It came from understanding the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, and humanity had only begun to explore its potential. Interface preparations complete, Alina reported, ready to proceed with consciousness demonstration on your command, General. Around her, the quantum fields hummed with the focused thoughts of hundreds of millions of humans, all working in perfect harmony. They had not sought this power, had not even known it was possible until they stumbled upon it. But now it had become their shield, their voice, and perhaps, if this demonstration succeeded, their path to peaceful contact with the wider galaxy. Minds of steel. Admiral Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with unease as he monitored the steadily recovering quantum networks aboard the Eternal Dawn. The unexplained relocation of his entire fleet had shaken his confidence, but even more disturbing was the lingering sensation of being watched, not by sensors or technology, but by something far more organic. Multiple quantum signatures detected, his science officer reported, her crystalline structure flickering with uncertainty. But the patterns, they're unlike anything in our database. They appear to be self-organizing without technological support. Before Vexthor could respond, a new presence touched the edges of their recovering quantum network. It wasn't an intrusion or attack. Rather, it felt like an invitation, a door being gently opened. In the Horizon Chamber, Dr. Alina Rodriguez coordinated the most delicate quantum interaction ever attempted by human consciousness. Establishing resonance bridge, she announced, her voice calm despite the immense concentration required. Matching our quantum frequency to their neural patterns. Through the collective consciousness of Earth's defense grid, 300 million human minds worked in perfect harmony, creating a quantum interface that could bridge the gap between two fundamentally different approaches to consciousness itself. Remember, General Chen cautioned, we're not trying to overwhelm them. This is about understanding. The first contact between human consciousness and Meridian quantum technology was like a symphony meeting a digital sequence, organic complexity touching artificial precision. In the space between thoughts and signals, two civilizations began to truly perceive each other for the first time. Aboard the Eternal Dawn, Vexthor experienced something that defied 10,000 years of Meridian understanding. The quantum field surrounding his ship wasn't generated by technology. It was woven from pure consciousness, millions of individual minds working in harmony to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Impossible, he whispered, his crystalline form resonating with shock. They're not using quantum amplifiers or consciousness matrices. Their minds, they're naturally quantum entangled. Through the resonance bridge, Alina carefully shared selected memories. The first discovery of consciousness-driven quantum effects, the gradual understanding of humanity's latent abilities, the development of the global defense network. She showed the Meridians not just what humans could do, but how fundamentally different their path had been. The impact on the Meridian fleet was profound. Ships that had come to conquer found themselves confronting not just a new technology, but an entirely new paradigm of existence. Their artificial quantum networks, which had seemed the pinnacle of advancement, suddenly appeared rigid and limited compared to the fluid grace of human consciousness. "They're responding," Captain Wong reported from his quantum monitoring station. "Their network is adapting. They're trying to match our patterns." Alina felt the change through the resonance bridge. The Meridian's quantum technology was attempting to mimic the organic flow of human consciousness, like a computer trying to replicate the movements of a dancer. It was crude but sincere, a first step toward understanding. In a private quantum channel, Sarah Chen's consciousness touched Alina's. "Look at their base patterns," she observed. "Their crystalline structure. It's not just their bodies, it's their minds. They've literally crystallized their consciousness into rigid forms." The realization rippled through the human collective. The Meridians weren't just using technology, they had become their technology. Generations of artificial quantum networking had transformed their consciousness into something structured and ordered, losing the natural quantum flexibility that humans still possessed. Through the resonance bridge, Vexthor's consciousness reached out tentatively. How? The question carried layers of meaning. How had humans developed this ability? How had they kept it hidden? How had they surpassed Meridian technology without following the expected path of development? Elena chose to answer not with words but with experience. Through the quantum interface, she shared the sensation of natural human consciousness, the fluid, adaptable, inherently quantum nature of thought itself. She showed him how technology wasn't needed to connect minds or manipulate reality, only understanding and harmony. The response from the Meridian fleet was unexpected. Their quantum networks began to shift, not in attack or defense, but in an attempt to match the organic patterns of human consciousness. It was like watching a crystal try to flow like water. Impossible, yet somehow they were attempting it. "They're learning," Sarah observed with excitement. "Their quantum technology is more adaptable than we thought. They're trying to bridge the gap from their side." General Chen's consciousness carried a note of caution. "Remember, they came here as conquerors. We need to be certain their interest is genuine." But Alina could sense the truth through the resonance bridge. The Meridians' attempt to understand human consciousness was changing them, awakening long-dormant neural patterns that their technology had suppressed. They were experiencing, for the first time in millennia, the possibility of consciousness beyond crystalline structure. "We're detecting quantum fluctuations throughout their fleet," Captain Wong reported. "Their ships, their entire technological base. It's all responding to the changes in their consciousness." Through the quantum interface, Alina watched in fascination as the Meridian ships began to shift and flow, their crystalline structures becoming less rigid, more organic. The change wasn't just in their technology, but in their fundamental way of being. They were evolving, not through conquest or force, but through understanding. Vexthor's next transmission carried none of the imperial authority of his first message. Instead, it resonated with something closer to wonder. "We have much to learn," he acknowledged. "Our empire has spent millennia perfecting quantum technology, yet you have shown us that our greatest achievement was also our greatest limitation." The resonance bridge hummed with potential as two fundamentally different approaches to consciousness began to find common ground. Humanity's organic quantum manipulation and Meridian crystalline technology weren't as incompatible as they had first appeared. They were different paths to the same fundamental truth about the nature of consciousness and reality. In the Horizon Chamber, Alina allowed herself to feel hope. This wasn't just first contact or defensive demonstration. It was the beginning of something entirely new. Two civilizations, each with their own unique understanding of consciousness and quantum reality, learning to bridge the gap between their different forms of existence. The price of pride. The crystalline corridors of the eternal dawn hummed with dissonance as Admiral Vexthor faced the most difficult transmission of his long career. The quantum screens before him showed the stern faces of the Meridian High Council, their forms sharp and angular with disapproval. "You mean to tell us," First Speaker Ctol's voice cut like shattered crystal, "that not only did you fail to acquire the human world, but you've allowed them to influence our quantum networks with their primitive consciousness?" Vexthor's form rippled with conviction. Primitive is precisely what they are not, honored speakers. What we've discovered here challenges everything we thought we knew about consciousness and quantum manipulation. Through the resonance bridge established by Earth's defense grid, Elena Rodriguez monitored the exchange. The human collective maintained a respectful distance, but the quantum fields carried echoes of the conversation to the horizon chamber. "Their council is afraid," Sarah Chen observed, her consciousness brushing against Elena's in the collective. "Not of our power, but of what it means for their society." Elena understood. The Meridians had built their entire civilization on the assumption that consciousness required technological enhancement. The existence of humanity's natural quantum abilities threatened the very foundation of their empire. In the council chamber, the debate grew heated. "This is unprecedented," second speaker Mirren declared, her crystalline form fracturing with stress patterns. "These humans claim to manipulate quantum fields with raw consciousness, without technology, without structure." "Not without structure," Vexthor corrected. "Their structure is organic, fluid. They've achieved what our ancestors thought impossible: direct neural quantum manipulation, and they've offered to share their understanding." The council chamber erupted in crystalline chimes of shock and disbelief. In the horizon chamber, General Chen's consciousness carried a note of concern. "They're reaching a crisis point," he observed. "Their rigid hierarchy is struggling to adapt to fluid concepts." Elena watched through the quantum fields as fracture lines of change spread through the Meridian quantum network. Their artificially structured consciousness was beginning to show signs of its natural pre-technological state. It was like watching ice begin to melt, beautiful but potentially destructive, if not properly managed. "We need to help them transition," she decided. "Their quantum technology isn't just tools, it's part of who they are. We can't ask them to abandon it, but we can help them integrate it with natural consciousness." Through the collective, Sarah's mind touched the quantum fields with diagnostic precision. "Their younger members are adapting faster," she reported. "The crystalline structures of their consciousness are becoming more flexible, more organic. But the older ones, especially the council, their patterns are too deeply set," Elena finished. "They've lived too long with rigid quantum structures. Forcing them to change could shatter their minds completely." In the council chamber, Vexthor faced the growing storm of opposition. "Honorable speakers, what we've discovered here isn't a threat to our way of life. It's an opportunity to evolve. The humans don't want to destroy our technology. They want to help us understand how to integrate it with natural consciousness and become dependent on their teachings." First speaker Katal's form pulsed with indignation. "Surrender our sovereignty to these organics." Through the quantum fields, Elena sensed the deeper fear beneath the council's anger. The Meridians had spent millennia believing they were approaching quantum consciousness perfection. The discovery that they had actually been limiting themselves was more than just shocking. It was existentially terrifying. "Permission to initiate Protocol Omega," Elena requested, her mind already formulating the plan. General Chen's consciousness radiated concern. "That level of quantum interaction has never been tested with non-human consciousness. The risks are necessary," Elena completed. "They need to understand that this isn't about superiority or submission. It's about unity." After a moment of collective consideration, approval rippled through the human quantum network. 300 million minds adjusted their focus, preparing to share not just information or power, but the fundamental experience of natural quantum consciousness. Through the resonance bridge, Elena reached out to Vexthor's mind. "Admiral," she transmitted, "we would like to show your council something. Not a demonstration of power, but an invitation to remember." In the council chamber, the quantum fields began to shift. The artificial structure of Meridian consciousness technology didn't shatter or break. Instead, it began to resonate with something older, something their species had forgotten. The memory of what consciousness felt like before it was bound in crystal and circuit. The effect rippled through the Meridian quantum network. Across their fleet, crystalline minds began to experience flickers of their species' ancestral consciousness, the natural quantum state they had possessed before technology had reshaped them. Impossible, first speaker Catal whispered, but his crystalline form was already beginning to pulse with long-forgotten rhythms. This is, I remember. Elena guided the quantum fields with precise care, supported by the vast but gentle power of human collective consciousness. This wasn't an attack or even a demonstration. It was a reminder, awakening patterns that had always existed within Meridian consciousness. Through the quantum interface, Vexthor shared his own experience of the change. Honored speakers, he transmitted, his consciousness flowing more naturally now. We haven't lost our way by encountering the humans. We've found a path back to ourselves. The council chamber resonated with the echoes of ancient memories as the Meridian leadership experienced, for the first time in countless generations, the full potential of their consciousness. Their quantum technology remained, but now it began to flow with their thoughts rather than constraining them. In the Horizon chamber, Elena monitored the quantum fields with careful precision. The integration is holding, she reported. Their technology is adapting to natural consciousness patterns. They're finding their own balance. And with it, Sarah added, a new understanding of what's possible when technology supports consciousness rather than replacing it. Tomorrow's piece. 1 month after first contact, the Horizon chamber had changed. Crystalline structures now grew alongside human quantum interfaces, symbolic of the unprecedented collaboration between two species that had found each other across the void of space. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a combined council of human and Meridian representatives, her consciousness seamlessly connected to both the human collective and the newly evolved Meridian quantum network. Beside her, Admiral Vexthor's crystalline form flowed with organic grace that would have been impossible mere weeks ago. The integration protocols are stable, Elena reported. Meridian quantum technology now amplifies natural consciousness rather than replacing it. Their entire fleet has successfully adapted to the new paradigm. Through the quantum fields, she sensed the profound changes in Meridian society. Their rigid hierarchy had given way to a more fluid structure, their crystalline technology evolving to support rather than constrain their natural abilities. They had not abandoned their technological achievements. Instead, they have found a way to unite them with the organic power of consciousness itself. We've detected quantum consciousness signatures from 17 other species, Vexthor added, his thoughts flowing smoothly through the combined network. All of them at various stages of technological development. All of them potentially capable of what humans have achieved. General Chen's consciousness touched the quantum fields with strategic consideration, and the Empire's response. The Empire is changing, Vexthor replied. We can no longer justify conquest when we have so much to learn. The Council has proposed a new directive, peaceful contact and consciousness development. Sarah Chen's mind brushed against the quantum interface, adding her insight. The real question is whether other species will make the same choice humans did, to develop consciousness before technology. Perhaps that's not the question, Elena suggested. Maybe it's not about choosing one path over another, but understanding how different paths can lead to the same truth. Through the quantum fields, she sensed the ripple of agreement from both human and Meridian minds. The brief conflict that had brought their species together had revealed something far more valuable than territory or technology. It had shown them that consciousness itself was the key to understanding the universe. In orbit above Earth, the Meridian fleet had transformed. Their ships still gleamed with crystalline beauty, but now they flowed with organic patterns that reflected the harmony of natural and technological consciousness. They had become living symbols of what was possible when ancient wisdom and advanced science learned to coexist. The quantum consciousness protocols are ready for sharing, Elena announced. Combined human and Meridian knowledge, designed to help other species understand their own potential. Through the resonance bridge, she sensed Vexthor's satisfaction. The admiral who had come to conquer Earth had instead found something far more precious, a way forward that promised growth rather than stagnation. understanding rather than dominance. "We're detecting new quantum signatures at the edge of the solar system," Sarah reported suddenly. 3. No, 4 different species. Word has spread about what happened here. Elena smiled. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community hadn't come through ships or weapons or traditional technology. Instead, they had reached the stars by understanding the most fundamental force in the universe, consciousness itself. "Are we ready for this?" General Chen asked, his thoughts touching both human and meridian quantum fields. "To become teachers when we've barely begun to understand our own capabilities." "Perhaps that's exactly why we're ready," Elena replied. "Because we know how much we still have to learn." Through the quantum networks, she sensed the approach of the new visitors, species that had developed along their own unique paths, each carrying pieces of the universal puzzle that consciousness represented. Some had focused on technology like the Meridians, others had followed more organic paths like humanity, but all were seeking the same fundamental understanding. As the combined human-meridian quantum network prepared to make contact with these new civilizations, Elena felt a profound sense of rightness. The universe wasn't meant to be conquered or dominated. It was meant to be understood, one consciousness at a time, each species contributing its own unique perspective to the greater whole. The quantum fields hummed with possibility as humanity prepared to take its place in a galaxy far more complex and beautiful than anyone had imagined. They had defended their world not through force, but through understanding, and in doing so, they had helped unlock the true potential of consciousness itself. In the end, humanity's greatest strength hadn't been technology or weapons, or even their natural quantum abilities. It had been their willingness to reach out across the void and share what they had learned, to help others find their own path to understanding the fundamental nature of consciousness and reality. The age of conquest was over. The age of consciousness had begun.